Welcome back to Old Coin Adventures. What if the 1984 D quarter in your hand isn't just another 25 cents? What if one tiny feature on this coin could make collectors look at it completely differently? The 1984 D quarter is common enough to be overlooked every single day, but hidden among ordinary examples are coins with unusual mint-made characteristics that can make them far more interesting. And here's where things get serious. There are details on this quarter that most people would never think to examine. One raised line, one unusual mark, or one dramatic mint error could completely change the story. But be careful. Not every strange mark is rare, and not every form of doubling means extra value. In this video, we're going to look beyond the date and the D mint mark, uncover the features collectors are actually searching for, and find out what could make a 1984 D quarter worth far more than 25 cents. And by the end, you'll also know what similar coins have actually sold for, how to recognize a genuine mint error, and where you can safely sell one if you've found something special. So don't put this quarter away just yet, because the detail that matters most may be hiding in plain sight. Now let's take a much closer look at this 1984 D Washington quarter. At first, it may look like an ordinary 25-cent coin. But turn it over, because the most interesting detail may not be on Washington's portrait at all. Look closely at the eagle on the reverse. Right around the eagle's beak, some 1984 D quarters can show a strange raised line extending outward from the beak. And this is where the nickname comes from. Collectors often call it the spitting eagle. It sounds unusual, but there's a real reason this feature appears. During the minting process, the dies can develop cracks or unusual die damage. When the damaged die strikes another blank, metal can flow into that recessed area of the die, creating a raised line on the finished coin. So what you're seeing isn't supposed to be a scratch. It's supposed to be raised metal. And that's one of the first things you need to check. Take a good look at the line near the eagle's beak. Is it actually raised above the surface? Does it have a smooth, consistent appearance? Or does it look like someone scratched the coin after it left the mint? That difference is extremely important, because post-mint damage does not have the same collector value as a genuine mint-made feature. And there's another reason you shouldn't stop at the first unusual mark you see. A 1984 D quarter can also be found with other types of mint errors, including off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and other striking or planchet errors. But not every unusual-looking quarter is automatically valuable. The size and severity of the error matter. For example, a dramatic off-center strike with the date still clearly visible can attract much more attention than a tiny shift that is barely noticeable. The same principle applies to other errors. The more obvious and authentic the mint-made mistake, the more interesting the coin can become to collectors. Now let's talk about condition. Because even without a major error, an exceptionally preserved 1984 D quarter can be worth much more than face value. The 1984 D issue had a mintage of more than 546 million coins, so ordinary circulated examples are common. But finding one in an exceptionally high grade is a completely different challenge. That doesn't mean every 1984 D quarter is worth hundreds of dollars. Far from it. Most circulated examples are still worth around face value. The big difference comes from condition, certification, and whether the coin has a genuine error or recognized variety. So if you're holding a 1984 D quarter right now, don't just check the date and put it away. Start with Washington's portrait. Look at the fields around the design. Check the lettering. Then turn it over and examine the eagle. Pay special attention to the area around the beak. If you see a raised line coming from the beak, don't immediately celebrate. Take a closer look. Use a loupe if you have one. A genuine raised die feature should look completely different from an ordinary scratch or gouge. And if the coin has another unusual characteristic, such as a major off-center strike, an unusual planchet, or a significant striking problem that deserves separate investigation. Here's the important lesson. The 1984 D quarter isn't valuable simply because it's old, and the D mint mark alone doesn't make it rare. The value comes from what is actually happening on that individual coin. It could be an ordinary quarter. It could be an interesting die variety. Or, if the right characteristics are present, It could be something that deserves professional authentication. And now we're getting closer to the question everyone wants answered. How much could one of these unusual 1984 D quarters actually be worth? What has a high-grade example really sold for? And what happens if your coin has the famous spitting eagle feature, or an even more dramatic mid-air? That's where we'll go next. Because once you know exactly what you're looking at, the value of this little 25-cent coin can become a very different story. Now we've reached the part you've been waiting for. How much could a 1984 D Washington quarter actually be worth? Let's start with something important. Most circulated 1984 D quarters are common, and they're generally worth around their face value. But once you move into exceptional condition, or find a genuine mint-made error or die variety, the story can change. For example, a professionally graded MS-67 1984 D Washington quarter sold for $780 at Heritage Auctions in June 2019. That's the documented auction record for the regular 1984 D issue listed by PCGS. And there have been other strong results too. An MS-67 example sold for $764 in 2013, another brought $423 in 2017, and a later MS-67 example sold for $336 through Stack's Bowers in 2023. So clearly, condition can make a huge difference. But remember, those prices are for exceptionally high-grade coins. They do not mean that every 1984 D quarter is worth hundreds of dollars. Now let's come back to the feature that makes this coin especially interesting, the famous spitting eagle. If your 1984 D quarter has the raised die break extending from the eagle's beak, the exact appearance and condition of that feature matter. Some sources give broad estimated ranges for spitting eagle examples, but there isn't a single universal price that applies to every coin. That's because error and variety coins can vary dramatically depending on the strength of the feature, the condition of the coin, authentication, and collector demand. So don't look at an online listing and assume your quarter is automatically worth the highest number you see. A seller can ask for hundreds of dollars, but an asking price is not proof that anyone actually paid it. What you want to find are completed sales of comparable coins. If your quarter has the spitting eagle feature, compare it with authenticated examples of the same variety. If it's a major off-center strike or another dramatic mid-error, compare it with the same type of error and a similar condition. And if the coin appears exceptional, professional authentication can become very important. Now let's talk about where you can sell it. If it's an ordinary circulated 1984 D quarter, a local coin dealer is usually the simplest place to start. If you've found a genuine error or a very high-grade example, you can consider an established coin dealer, a reputable numismatic marketplace, or a major auction house. For an authenticated rare error, an auction house can be especially useful because your coin can be presented to collectors who already understand the variety. But before you sell, protect yourself. Never let a buyer pressure you with a statement like, "You have to accept this offer right now." Take your time. Get a second opinion. Check recent completed auction results. And ask the buyer how they arrived at their offer. If someone tells you your quarter is worth thousands of dollars, but then asks you to send money first for a verification fee, insurance fee, registration charge, or some other payment, stop right there. That's a major warning sign. Never send money to a stranger just because they promise a larger payment later. And never give a buyer your banking password, PIN, OTP, or other sensitive security information. Keep photographs of both sides of the coin, keep records of offers you receive, and don't ship an expensive coin until you understand the payment and shipping terms. Most importantly, don't clean the quarter. Don't polish it. Don't use chemicals. And don't try to make the spitting eagle feature look more dramatic. The original surface is part of the coin's condition, and cleaning can reduce its collector appeal.